All right, so welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about characters who just can't seem to shut up.
You know, the ones who make you laugh, but also make you think, okay, maybe just one breath.
Yeah, and we're pulling our insights from a Listverse article. It's called 10 Hilarious Characters Who Never Shut Up.
A very appropriate title.
Yeah, and I think everyone listening has encountered these chatty characters in movies, TV shows, video games.
Absolutely.
But have you ever wondered what makes them work? Or why some of them totally flop?
Right. Why do some work and some don't?
And that's what we're here to uncover today.
And, the article points out this really fine line that writers have to walk with these characters. It's like the difference between that kid who just won't stop talking
Yeah.
and you just want to hide
Oh, yeah.
versus the friend who just keeps you in stitches with their nonstop commentary.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So what makes the difference? What makes one work and one not? This article got me thinking about how humor often comes from the dialogue itself, like the dialogue is genuinely funny.
Right.
Or the contrast between the chatty character and everyone else.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
I mean, that contrast could be comedy gold. I mean, imagine a really tense scene. Maybe everybody's trying to be really stealthy and quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got this one character just chattering away, totally oblivious.
Yes.
And it just undercuts all of the seriousness.
Yeah.
And we, as the audience, we're in on the joke.
Yeah, we are. We're definitely in on the joke.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump into some examples from the article. First up is Deadpool, the merc with a mouth.
Of course, we have to have Deadpool.
Of course. And I think you're probably all familiar with his shtick. You know, he constantly breaks the fourth wall. He knows he's a fictional character. He loves to point it out.
Right.
Loves to remind us.
He loves to remind us.
But it's fascinating how that works.
It really is.
Yeah. Because by acknowledging that he's fictional, he parodies this entire genre, right? The superhero genre.
He does.
He's making fun of all the conventions, the seriousness, even the audience's expectations.
And he provides that meta commentary, which really kind of adds a whole other layer to the experience.
It does. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really does. It's like he's in on the joke with us.
Yes.
Which makes it even more funny.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, for someone completely different, Donkey from Shrek. Remember him?
Oh, how could we forget?
Shrek's biggest problem, let's say.
Yes. In more ways than one.
Yes. But he embodies this, like, endearingly annoying quality that's so good.
So well.
Yeah.
It's like he's weaponized his chattiness, constantly poking at Shrek's grumpy exterior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually through that relentless positivity, that constant chatter, that they actually form a bond.
I never thought about it like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's forcing Shrek to confront his, being alone, being by himself.
Right.
By just never shutting up.
That's right.
All right. Now for a complete 180, let's talk about Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket. So, Vietnam War film, super intense. Hartman's the drill sergeant, and he's known for his really brutal, dark humor.
Yes.
The article highlights him, and it's a perfect example of how context shapes humor.
It really is.
Right, because in any other situation, his constant yelling, his insults, it would just be abusive.
Right.
But within the pressure cooker of like military training and the backdrop of war, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Yes, it does.
And the article points out it's strangely funny.
It is. It really is. Dark humor allows us to process difficult subjects.
Yeah.
And it allows us to find that humor in the darkest of places. Now, speaking of dark humor, you know who kind of reminds me of Hartman in a twisted way?
Ooh.
Hades.
Oh, from Hercules.
Yes.
He...
Hades. From Disney's Hercules. He might not yell as much.
Yeah, he's not a yeller.
But he's a fast talker.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
That deal-making persona.
Yeah. He definitely fits our theme today.
He does. He really does.
Yeah. Hades isn't a chatterbox in the traditional sense, I guess.
Right.
But his words are definitely a weapon.
Oh, absolutely.
He overwhelms you with information, jokes, double talk. It's
Right.
like he's constantly running a con.
Yes.
It makes you wonder if he ever stops talking, even in his own head.
I don't think he does.
Okay, let's switch gears again
Okay.
with Jaskier, the bard from The Witcher.
Oh, yes.
He's chatty in a completely different way.
He is.
All about self-promotion
Yeah.
and turning every conversation into a chance to sing his own praises, literally.
Oh, Jaskier.
Yeah.
He's a classic case of insecurity masking itself as bravado.
Oh, yeah.
All that boasting about his adventures with Geralt.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to convince himself as much as anyone else.
But there's a real friendship there with Gerald underneath all that bluster.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
It's like his chattiness is both a shield and a way to connect, however clumsily.
It creates this hilarious tension because he's desperate for the attention, the validation.
Yeah.
But the moment any real danger appears, that facade crumbles.
It does.
And you see the genuine fear behind the mask.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's constantly performing, even for himself.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you ready for a dose of pure, unadulterated boredom?
Oh, let's do it.
Because we're about to discuss Colm McCool from Derry Girls.
Oh, yes.
The article calls him boring to an unbelievable extent.
Yes. Which is honestly an understatement.
It is an understatement.
It is.
But his chattiness isn't about humor or wit. It's just endless mundane detail.
Right.
But somehow it works.
It does.
So how does that work?
It's that contrast again.
Right.
The sheer agony that his stories inflict on everybody else, that becomes the joke.
Yeah.
Right. So we're laughing at their pain.
Right.
But also, maybe at our own experiences.
Yeah.
With people who just don't know when to stop.
Yes. Oh, we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Okay, last one for this part of our deep dive, and it's a wild card. Billy, from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Now, he's chatty in a way that only a cartoon character can be.
Oh, yes, right.
He is.
What do you think's going on there?
Billy is pure, unfiltered chaos.
Yes, he is.
His chattiness is just this constant stream of non sequiturs.
Yeah.
Random thoughts, questions that just make absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
It's like his brain is a pinball machine and his mouth is the only way to keep up.
And yet, it never gets old.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, it drives Mandy and everyone else absolutely insane.
I think it's because Billy's chattiness is so innocent.
Okay.
There's no malice behind it. He's just a kid who's excited about everything.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't quite understand what everything is.
Right.
And that kind of enthusiasm, even when it's completely nonsensical, it's strangely contagious.
It is.
It reminds us of that joy of discovery.
Yeah.
Even if that discovery is just a random thought that pops into your head. It's like he embodies the id, right?
Exactly.
Pure impulse,
Absolutely.
expression, unfiltered.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from Deadpool, the meta commentary, to Donkey being endearingly annoying. It seems like chattiness can serve a lot of different purposes in storytelling. What stands out to you so far? Any common threads you've noticed in how these characters use their words?
It's interesting because it seems like there's this spectrum of awareness at play.
Okay.
Right? Some characters, like Deadpool, are totally aware of the effect they're having.
Yes, they're very self-aware.
Very self-aware.
Yeah.
And then you have characters like Colm who seem completely oblivious.
Yes.
And then there are those, like Jaskier, who kind of fall somewhere in between.
Okay.
They're aware enough to use it as a shield,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not aware enough to see that it also pushes people away.
That's such a good point. It seems like that level of awareness really impacts how we perceive these characters.
It really does. And it makes me wonder if that awareness or lack thereof is something that writers consciously consider.
Oh, interesting. We have a whole other layer to explore how their inner worlds are reflected in all this outward chatter.
Absolutely. And it makes me really excited to dive into part 2
Yeah.
and see what other insights we uncover.
Well, stay tuned because in part 2, we'll be exploring even more chatty characters,
Yes.
uncovering their motivations, dissecting those writing techniques that make them so memorable.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait.
As we kind of delve deeper into these chatty characters, what's fascinating to me is how their dialogue isn't just about being funny.
Yeah.
It often reveals these deeper layers of their personality.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Their motivations, their anxieties.
It's like the way they talk becomes this window into their inner world. We're not just laughing at their words. We're
Right.
getting a glimpse of who they are at their core.
Exactly. And I think that's why some of these characters resonate so deeply with us.
Yeah.
Because even when it's over the top or annoying, it feels authentic.
Mm.
Because it's rooted in something real.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's jump back into our list from Listverse. We were talking about Jaskier and how he uses his chattiness as a shield. It makes me think about another character who does something similar, but in a completely different way. Have you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Oh, a classic.
You're talking about Ferris himself, right?
Yeah.
He's got that fast-talking, charismatic energy.
Oh, yes.
That just pulls everyone into his schemes.
He does.
He's constantly narrating his own life,
right,
spinning these elaborate tales, charming his way out of every situation. It's almost like he's creating this alternate reality where everything goes his way just by talking about it.
It's brilliant. And it makes you wonder, is he really that confident?
Right.
Or is all that talk a way to kind of like mask his own insecurities?
Oh, I like that.
Is he convincing himself as much as he's convincing everybody else?
That's such a good question. It's like he's built this persona, this Ferris Bueller character, and he has to keep talking to keep it alive.
And it makes you think about the role of the audience.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We're drawn into his performance. We root for him.
Yeah, we do.
But are we enabling his self-deception?
Ooh.
It adds this whole other layer of complexity to his character.
It really does. Okay, now for a character who's chatty in a way that's both hilarious and heartwarming. Mrs. Maisel. From The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She's got this rapid-fire wit that just bursts out of her, whether she's on stage or dealing with family drama.
She's a force of nature.
She is.
And what I love about her is her chattiness is both a defense mechanism and a form of empowerment.
Okay.
She uses humor to deflect pain, to challenge those societal expectations, and to really find her own voice in a world that wants to silence her.
It's like she's taking all that pent-up energy, all those unspoken thoughts, and channeling it into these brilliant, hilarious rants.
Exactly. And it's so refreshing to see a female character who's unapologetically herself.
Yes.
Who owns her intelligence, her wit.
Yeah.
Even when it makes others uncomfortable.
All right, now for a character who's definitely more on the chaotic side of the chatty spectrum, Kramer.
Oh, yes.
From Seinfeld.
Oh.
He bursts into Jerry's apartment.
Yes.
With these wild stories, half-baked schemes.
You never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Bizarre observations. It's like he's living in his own wacky sitcom.
He's a master of non sequiturs.
Yes, he is.
He just jumps from one random thought to the next, and somehow it always circles back to some absurd punchline.
Yeah.
It's like he's tapped into this stream of consciousness that's both hilarious and a little unsettling.
It's like he's the embodiment of pure id.
Right. Exactly.
No filter, no sense of boundaries, just pure impulse and expression.
That's it. And it works because, deep down, there's this childlike innocence to his chaos.
Yeah, there is.
He's not trying to be malicious.
No.
He's just genuinely fascinated by everything.
Yeah.
Even if those things are totally nonsensical to everyone else.
It's funny. We've been focusing on how chattiness reveals character, but it also makes me think about how it shapes relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Think about the dynamic between Sherlock and Watson in Sherlock.
Oh, good one.
So Sherlock's deductions, they're delivered in this rapid fire, almost overwhelming way.
Right.
And Watson's constantly trying to keep up, to make sense of it all.
Yeah. It's like their dialogue becomes this kind of intellectual dance.
Okay.
Sherlock's pushing the boundaries, challenging assumptions, and Watson is grounding him.
Yeah.
Providing that human connection that Sherlock often lacks.
It's like their conversations become a microcosm of their whole relationship.
Yes.
The clash of intellect, the mutual respect, and that underlying affection.
And it's through those conversations, those verbal sparring matches, that their bond deepens and evolves.
All right, now for a duo who take chattiness to a whole other level, Lorelai and Rory Gilmore from the Gilmore Girls. They talk a mile a minute.
Oh, I love them.
Finish each other's sentences. It's almost like they have their own secret language.
Their dialogue is like a perfectly choreographed waltz.
I like that.
It's fast, it's witty, it's full of pop culture references.
Yes.
And it perfectly captures the intimacy and warmth of their relationship.
It's like they're creating their own world where only they can truly understand each other.
Yes.
And we as viewers, we're just lucky enough to get a glimpse inside.
Exactly. And it makes you want to be a part of that world.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it means you have to keep up with their breakneck pace.
Okay, we've got one more character to unpack in this part of our deep dive, and he's a bit of a wild card. Leo Getz from the Lethal Weapon series.
Oh, yes.
Remember him? He's Riggs and Murtaugh's, let's call him their unofficial informant.
Yes, their tug-along.
Yeah, their toggle.
He's the definition of a motor mouth.
It's like he's a human tornado of words.
Yes.
Everyone around him just gets swept up in his chaos. But somehow it works.
It does.
He's annoying, he's meddling, but he's also fiercely loyal.
Right.
And ultimately harmless.
Yes.
And his constant chatter provides some much-needed comic relief.
Yes.
In this otherwise, action-packed series.
Exactly. And I think that's a key takeaway from this exploration of chatty characters. They can be annoying, they can be overwhelming, but they can also be incredibly endearing, insightful, and even heartwarming. It all depends on how that chattiness is used, how it's woven into the fabric of their character and their relationships.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on a, serious, chatty character? Could someone who talks a lot also convey a sense of gravity, of depth?
That's a really intriguing question, and it's one we'll explore in our final part of our deep dive. So stay tuned, because we'll be delving into the surprising ways that chattiness can be used to explore serious themes and create characters who are both complex and compelling.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into chatty characters. We've laughed, we've cringed, we've analyzed everything from Deadpool all the way to Colt McCool.
Oh, the full spectrum.
The full spectrum, right. But before we wrap up, I think we have one last big question to tackle.
We do, and it really challenges our assumptions about these characters.
Yeah.
We've been focusing on, chattiness, these chatty characters, as comedic figures.
Right.
But what about those who use words as a tool for something more serious?
It almost seems counterintuitive, right?
It does.
We think of chattiness as a lighthearted, maybe even frivolous. Can someone who talks a lot also convey a sense of, depth, gravitas?
Well, think about it this way. Language is a powerful tool. It can be used to entertain, to persuade, to manipulate.
Yeah.
But also to reveal vulnerability, to express those complex emotions.
Yeah, right.
To really grapple with difficult truths.
I see what you mean. It's the way a character talks, it can reveal those inner struggles, right? Their fears, their hopes, even if they're not, explicitly saying those things out loud.
Exactly. And sometimes the more a character talks, the more those hidden depths become apparent.
Oh, okay.
It's like they're trying to fill the silence with words, not because they're trying to be funny, but because they're trying to make sense of something.
Yeah.
To connect with someone, to find their place in the world.
Okay, I'm ready to put this theory to the test. What are some examples?
Well, one that comes to mind is Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, yeah.
He's constantly narrating his thoughts and experiences, often in this cynical, rambling kind of way.
Right.
But beneath that surface cynicism, there's this deep sense of alienation, of searching for, authenticity in a world that just feels phony.
Phony and superficial, yeah. It's his words are this defense mechanism, but also a cry for help.
Yes.
He's pushing people away, but also, desperately wanting to connect with someone who gets him.
Exactly. And his constant talking, his questioning of everything, it becomes a reflection of that inner turmoil.
Yeah.
His struggle to find meaning and purpose in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and kind of meaningless.
That's such a great point. His chattiness isn't just this character quirk.
Right.
It's a symptom of a deeper existential crisis.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what happens when these characters who use words as this shield, as a way to kind of keep the world at bay.
Right.
When they finally encounter someone who sees through those defenses.
Ooh, that's interesting. It's their whole way of being in the world is challenged.
It is.
Do they break down? Do they open up? Do they change?
Right. It's a question worth exploring. And it makes you realize that chattiness, whether it's used for comedic effect or to delve into these serious themes, it's a powerful tool for a writer.
It's all about how those words are used, the context, the subtext, the underlying motivations. It's not just about how much a character talks, it's about what they're trying to say, whether, consciously or unconsciously.
And sometimes the most chatty characters are the ones with the most to hide. Ones who are most afraid of silence, of being, truly known.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this final thought. The next time you encounter a chatty character, whether it's in a book, a movie, a TV show, even in real life, take a moment to consider what's driving their need to, to fill the silence. What are they trying to achieve? Or maybe avoid with their words?
It's a question worth asking.
It is, because you might just discover a whole new layer of depth, of complexity in a character you thought you knew so well.
You might even learn something about yourself in the process.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of chatty characters. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations flowing, even if they get a little bit, well, chatty.